Am I live there? Okay. I'm gonna wait a second, maybe a minute, and then I'm gonna start the stream. I'm gonna let other people come in for a minute, and then I'm gonna start. Okay, I guess I'm gonna start the stream now. So, hello guys. This is the introduction to Jetpack Compose, and uh, this is like the basic UI framework that is up and coming technology for Android development here now. And if you are already familiar with HTML CSS, this should be pretty easy to understand. If you are familiar with React, then this is gonna be like very similar to what you have been doing, like state and composables and everything. So yeah, about the session, I'm not gonna be going too much in depth here because, to be fair, it requires a little bit of patience. Just like creating a simple project will take around 10 minutes or something. Even if you have a good internet connection, if you're starting for the first time. After that, it will be faster, but I'm guessing everyone is new here. So uh, so yeah, let's go. So why are we using Jetpack Compose here, and why not the traditional XML that we have been using for, like, I don't know, ever since Android came in? Uh, See, the XML part is very uh, sort of say old approach of coding these things. Like, if you see the web development side of the projects that have been going on, you will see the differences right away. That now the all the websites have been coding in declarative way rather than pragmatic. Uh, Same is with Android. We had to adapt for a new future development. So here we are with the Jetpack Compose that Android has just launched, and it's like really gonna revolutionize the industry in the next 2 years or something. The only reason other people are using it, because using it or not using it, is because we have been using XML for a long time, and most of the apps that already are the products in this stage has been coded in XML. So to be honest, many people have not even been started using Jetpack Compose in the industry yet, but all the Google apps and everything have been started to get ported into an Jetpack Compose, because it it is much easier and more uh, independent way of coding Android apps. So, what is the roadmap of learning Jetpack Compose? Is first of all, I'm gonna be clear with you that what I'm gonna be doing here is that I'm gonna create a simple framework for you to understand how you should approach this subject, and how you should continue with the advancement of learning this project and learning this language further on. So, learning of the roadmap, the basic roadmap of learning this Jetpack Compose is basically you need to know a little bit of Kotlin. There's no need to go into too much depth, because Kotlin, to be fair, has been adapted most of this paradigm from Java, and so you just need to know the basic syntax, the functions, how to create functions, how to create composables. That is Jetpack Compose related concept that I'm going to be covering soon, and conditionals, how to use conditionals, because well, conditionals are the most basic use case in code. Anyways, now we go to structures. The base After you have learned how to create the basic structure of an Android app, you are gonna go to the next part, which is routing. You see, when you click a button in any Android app, you will see that it goes somewhere. Same is with Android apps. That this is how you do it. You use routing. This is not. I'm not gonna covering this routing part because, to be honest, it's a little complex for beginners. Same with if you have done web development, you knows that after you have learned front end development and back end development, the next part to learn is APIs. And API and image loading is the concept is pretty similar to what we have been doing in web dev, such as async and await and everything. So same is the structure here with APIs and image loading. And we are not going to be covering the architecture part here because architecture is like it requires another 1 hour of a session or something. And if you're going to learn all these parts and then you're going to go to the advanced part of Jetpack Compose, you're gonna see that well, the most basic thing you're gonna do before starting, before like deploying a product or some deploying an app, you're going to create testing functions. Like you have to create a test function for a lot of the different composable that you have been coding, and same with the backend logic of things because the architecture of Android apps are so vast and so big that it will take uh, like a good understanding of architecture before you actually start to optimize things, and then you go for a launch. I'm not gonna be covering all these things as I just said, and what is to be taken away from this session is that I'm not going to bore you with all the theories and logic of how Android apps are doing all these things and how they are rendering it. You can go to the users in the Android developer website and learn how this works. I'm going to link all the resources in the blog. So the initial setup that you need in order to run a basic app in Jetpack Compose is that a you need a Android Studio. So you can get the Android Studio from the website that I'm just gonna show you right now. So you can download Android Studio from this site, developers.android.com/studio. This is also gonna be linked in the blog itself. And moving along with with our session is that you can simply just download it. Now, after downloading and installing it, you're gonna have to download other SDKs and everything. It's pretty simple. You can look up. I'm gonna link a YouTube tutorial in the blog itself, and because it will take time, and I don't want to waste time here covering all this. Okay, now you have the Android Studio. Now I'm gonna tell you a little bit about a concept called recomposable that is gonna be very handy for you when you're gonna work on it. So recomposition is basically an idea of writing a code once and then you can use it everywhere. It's not exactly that, but this is the basic concept of it. So what you're gonna do is that you're gonna create a composable. Now you can use it different parts of the app. You can use it again. For example, you're creating a checkbox and a name tag alongside it. You are creating a card. You can use it many times over and over again. If you instead of coding, writing and coding it again that you have to do in a previous approach. Now, next part is state. State is a very, it's not related to Jetpack Compose only. It is a basic paradigm in developing apps, whether it's in web or any native code platform. So, what is state? State is basically defining a state of a function, variable, or anything that you update it once an event happens. This is all you need to know. Basically, you don't want to be inputting a fixed data. You are outputting a dynamic data. So, for example, there's a number, a counter that changes every time you click on it. This is basically what state does. You can look for it in the resources in the blog. It is fairly explained in the blog itself. Okay, now let me just code along now, but it's gonna get a little boring if I just keep talking about theory. So let me just show you what we are gonna do here. So let me share my entire screen. So as you can see that this is how a basic Android Studio uh, homepage looks like. Now you can create a project by going to File, New Project, and choose Empty Activity. Name your file and click on Finish. I'm not going to do it because it takes some moment, around 2 to 3 minutes before it runs on. This is how you deploy it on a emulator, or you can use a physical device itself. Okay, moving on. This is the structure. Now you have to focus on this part only. You see the Java part and then com.example. This is the name of my file. It could be whatever you have defined, and this is the basic the theme of the app that you're gonna be using. This is good for designers because as a designer you want things to be customized, the things you want it to be like has to be according to your taste. You have to define your own color, your own RGB things. You don't have to do it again in Android. Basically, it allows you to customize everything from primary to secondary to tertiary color, which is a good concept in design part. Also, you can like whatever typography you want, like what are the colors you want to add, you can change that also. And so you don't have to define a proper hex code every time you want to like insert it into an app or something. You can just you have already defined it here. You just have to point out to the variable here. Okay, now this is the main activity area. So what I can see here is that you are seeing bunch of imports. Now, good thing about Android Studio is if you guys have used Spider or PyCharm or something, this will automatically import all the things that you're gonna use here. So now when you are gonna create your own app or code here, this thing will come by default. This is how it will be starting. This is the basic code that is already gonna be there. This is the default code. You have to remove it. But right now I'm gonna leave it. So okay, instead of showing you the code, I'm gonna type it out right in front of you. So in order to start a composable, you have to use this. A composable is basically a widget. If you're familiar with Flutter, or composable is how you define a basic UI element that you are creating in Android. Okay, now you're gonna define a function. I'm gonna just name it text box here, and this is how you create a function in Jetpack, or should I say Kotlin. And now, how do you create UI elements in Jetpack Compose? Well, it's nothing too complex. You see these functions, right? Now, every function contains widgets. Widgets are the built-in elements that have been provided by Jetpack itself. So let's try to create our text box. Okay, so I'm gonna show the preview of everything here. So if I type in text here, you see it is pointing to the text right now. If I click on it and type in, this is the first, this is your favorite first and composable. And now, but you can see this is not showing here. This review here is not from the code you just wrote. It's from here. I'm gonna remove this and you're gonna know what I'm talking about. Just a second. Here we go. You see this text box, but you can't see it here. This is a preview panel. You get it from here. Okay. Now, fine. Now you're gonna just type in preview. Show background boolean as. It's gonna take a second to load. Now, just a moment. You can fairly start to see this widget here, right? Now, this is your first composable that you have just created. Now, everything you're gonna do after this is gonna be based on this basic fundamental idea that you are gonna create a composable, you're gonna create a function, and all the UI elements is gonna lie inside. Okay. Fine. Now, the next thing I'm gonna teach you is how to use columns and rows, because in any layout, these are the most fundamental structure that are present. You see in any website, there are nav bars and everything. They are present in a row. Same with all the images and all, they are present in a column or something. Whichever website you see in any app, for example, phone pay and everything, it has grids and everything. You can create it using just simple code. Just type in row and Let's copy paste here, and now we have just created a row. It's as simple as it is. Same with column. You can, if you want, you can define a column here. Uh, I'm not gonna bore you with a lot of coding here. It's very simple to do, and just I'm gonna show you how things actually work in practice. And now you see I've defined a column and a row here, but it's not gonna be completely visible here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bind these two also in a column, and there you go. Now you have learned how to use rows and columns. Gonna render in a second. And what you can see here is that every element is defined in its own structure. You are defining the structure on the go. You don't have to in XML, unlike that, you have to point out and drag and drop it like where do you want the element to be, every single element to be, and how it changes according to UI. And if you guys are familiar with web dev, this is very similar to web dev. Here's how you code a simple grid and all. Actually, to be honest, in HTML, CSS is much complex than creating a row and column here. But this is the simple layout that you're gonna use it. Okay, I'm gonna create a second composable here. I'm going to teach you about another way to create an element. So see, I've created a column here, right? Now there's another most commonly used widget. It's called box. Literally, it's called box, and you have to give it a some size. Now here you see a new keyword called modifier. Now what is a modifier? Modifier is basically your way to customize things. This is how you're gonna define how you want your UI element to be. How you this is how you style it. So you see a modifier here. Now in order to just add a parameter, you're gonna say size. There you go. Now you're gonna go for 20 dp. Now it has already defined its size. Now this modifier is used to change the way your UI element looks. Okay. Now what modifier is to supposed to be able to support? You can see it by Control B here, and when you when you tap Control and click on it, you can see all the variables it can be assigned to. Okay, now this is our little box that we have just created. Now I'm just gonna create a few more. It's gonna be in a column. Now suppose I want to add a different color to this background. Well, how do I do that? Just click on here. Say still rendering. Okay. Now here you're gonna change the background of it. See, most of it is basically plain English. You just have to understand how you want to create your app and code it according to your own needs. It's not that very complex, to be honest. And it's if you have not used XML, I'm going to tell you it's much better than XML. And the concept of Flutter was enhanced here. Like this is the next wave of how it should have been created. Okay, now I'm going to define a color here. There you go. I'm gonna add another color here. And now you can see that I have this blue, and sure you're gonna see a red one here. Wait. So yeah, now you see it's gonna take a little time to load because it directly compiles to the assembly language right from your code. So with that, you can have the idea of how good it is and how efficient and fast. It's gonna be compared to Flutter, which is a cross-platform. It doesn't convert to assembly code directly. But anyways, the last thing I'm gonna discuss after this is the blog that's gonna go on the IEEE CS blog site. And see, we've already covered creating the first composable, adding modifiers, rows and columns, using both, using the box also. Now, um, you see, you have this box, right? Now you want something inside the box. How are you gonna do that? Just use this parentheses. There you go. Now you can add a simple text here and just write hello, I'm here. Now this is just by adding parentheses, it has started to support its own structure. You can add and compound on it. If you are following along after watching this video, like with the recorded version of it, you can see all the changes and experiment with it. There's also a spatial module here. You're gonna have to experiment. It's gonna give a little gap. I'm not gonna go into it. So this is the animation in Jetpack Compose part. This is gonna be a little uh, not that tricky to be honest. So you see, this is how you're gonna have to architect a like a really professional level of uh, function and composable in Android. So you see it, ignore this. This is gonna be removed soon. So you see the composable that you have just that I was just using to create a composable here using this composable function. This is how you create a function. I just taught you. Now, what are these title and title font size that have already been defined here? Well, what you should do is that instead of, as I said, Jetpack Compose is a dynamic language, right? It uses dynamic paradigm of writing code. So when you are defining it separately, the title font size, every time you're gonna re-render this composable, it's gonna be very repetitive and kind of boring to write the same code over and over again. Right? So what we do here is that we just simply define it here that all the components inside this function is already gonna be instilled with all the basic design paradigms that we want to specify to it. Okay. Now we come to this variable expand state by remember mutable state of false, whatever you're seeing here. Now this is not jargon, but it's basically a way to storing state. Yeah, just remember it. This is how you store. This is the name of a variable. You use remember to remember the state of the variable, and use mutable state of it. You can't change it using any other function until you want to change the state of the function. And now a card is another composable widget that is provided by Jetpack. Uh, Now you have to slowly build up on the knowledge that you have learned so far. And then you're going to see that every widget has its own component tree and every different paradigm of different UI elements that you can assign to it. You can have different modifiers assigned to it. And you're going to have to see how it fits with your own design. So I'm going to recommend that you create a prototype first and then see how when you have created your own prototype in Figma or prototype whatever you are using, you're gonna see that in Jetpack Compose it's so intuitive with how you wanna create your app and how you wanna create the layout of your app, right? So this is a card and this is a column. This is text. You see this icon. This is just various layers that you keep on adding on the UI element that you are already creating. This is a condition I was saying. This is not that hard to understand. Basically, the syntax is very similar to Java, and I'm not gonna go into detail because this is not a code that you wanna learn. It's how you should think in Compose that's more important. Once you have mastered that, the basically the auto sense will gonna complete all your thinking. Anyways, so once we are already here, uh, once you're already here, this is the resources I'm gonna tell you to go through if you want to learn and interested in learning more about Jetpack Compose. So this is the first thing. This is how I learned all the Jetpack Compose part and how I learned to code in Android development area. So we go to this site, developer. jetpack.android.com /android basic wala. And I hope you can see this. Yeah, you go to this site. This is the code. Uh, this is the code-based approach to learning Jetpack Compose and Android development. It goes all the way to the advanced level part. It teaches you everything from storing data to creating, downloading images, connecting to APIs, and everything. It's a very vast course. It's completely practical based. No theory here, and no theory than required. And it starts from very basics, as it says, and it goes all the way to the top. Now, if you don't want to read stuff and if you don't want to see things, then I'm gonna recommend you some YouTube playlist. uh, there's a channel called Philip Lackner. Obviously this all of these links will be available in the blog post, and he teaches everything in detail. Literally, he has video in everything. It updates regularly. You can see it's 1 month ago, and every concept, every little details in Android development you can find on his channel. And but once you reach a certain stage only, then I'm gonna recommend this. This is another playlist by him. Uh, it's, al- it's also really good. Hi, good evening. And just a sec. Sorry for that. I have to give attendance here. Now, uh, this is our basic UX course that you're gonna see with material. I'm gonna recommend you to start with this. This teaches you about all the basic structures that you're gonna be using on a day-to-day ways if you're gonna code an Android app. And uh, there's one more channel called. I'll just teach show you this last one, and all of these links is gonna be available in obviously in the blog post. It's gonna be in the description of this video. And yeah, so as you can see, we have already covered all the building the composable, learning about modifiers, using the rows and columns and everything here. And I think this should be enough for you to start this Android development journey. Hopefully, I was a little bit helpful in doing that. I've already shared all the resources that I learned from, and if you put in the time, it's going to be very easy to learn Android app, and like you can create really cool apps with it. The channels I just showed you, they are created like Pokédex and everything in Android app, and it's very fun to join along. And thanks, guys. It was really fun to host it. I just had the chance to share all the things with you guys, and yeah, hopefully you learn it really fast because it's not that hard to be honest. Yeah, thank you. That's all. Bye.